Hello, welcome to another episode of A Conversation with Villa Springfield. Today I am honored to have State Representative Kyle Koehler with us, and it's District 79, that's what I thought. Here we're going to chat a little bit about all kinds of things. Thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
Yes, tell us what district, who's in the district, what you represent, and then we'll dig into some other stuff.
Well, I always tell people I serve this perfect district in the state of Ohio because we always talk about how maps are drawn and everything.
Yes.
In Clark County, I serve all of Clark County minus 3 townships. Basically, Harmony, Pleasant, and Moorfield are not in my
Moorfield
district.
isn't?
No. So all of Clark County minus those 3 townships. It's a great district because 60,000 people live in the city, about 60,000 people live in the rural areas. We're split 50-50 Democrat, Republican registered with a lot of independents. So it's a great district because it's all in one county, very evenly split. I love representing it.
Yeah, that's great. Kind of weird how Moorfield, they're not in it, but Clark County is a big county.
Right,
130,000
people, and right now you take 11.5 million people in the state of Ohio, divide them up by 99 representatives, you get about 19,000. So that's why we don't represent those 3. Those belong to Bill Dean over in the Madison Greene County area. So as the population changes, that might grow or shrink when we do redistricting next year.
And that is coming up.
That's coming up, yes, absolutely.
How do you think the census is going to affect that with
what's
going on with the pandemic and everything?
Well, I checked with the chamber, and they talk about how our demographics has changed. Whether there are more people living outside of Clark County but coming in, or there's people living in Clark County going out to places like Wright Pat or up at Honda in Marysville. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know. I'm excited about some of the things in Springfield. The housing on the east end of town that's going in, the housing downtown that's going in. It's changing. Our population is changing. We're looking at downtown differently. It's very exciting. So
we have a downtown.
Yes.
And that is exciting.
I parked in the parking garage this morning.
Did you? Yeah.
I want to park there. I want to use it like everybody else should.
That's right. And I tell people all the time, you need to at least drive down here.
Right.
And the restaurants and the businesses down here are all following the COVID protocol. You could feel safe coming to them.
Absolutely.
They all have takeout. They all have everything.
I love walking from my business across the street to go to the Cohatch and have lunch.
Yes.
It's like I'm walking into downtown Columbus now. And
yes, it feels
got
like
that feel, and I love it.
It does. Speaking of COVID, let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
So, and with school, they kind of go hand in hand with that coming up. Just tell me where you're at on that, or what people would be interested in knowing.
Well, we're slowly moving through this. When we started it in March, nobody knew anything about it. We were guessing a lot of what it's going to be like, how contagious it is. That's changed over time. We've learned some things, how it affects young people, how it affects old people. It's something that is evolving. And I stood with the governor when he first started. We talked about flattening the curve, and we talked about the fact that at the beginning we said, I think we're all going to get this. We want to do it, though, in a way that the hospitals and our doctors can somehow take care of us. And I believe we have flattened the curve. We've gone to a point where our hospitals are not overrun. I was looking at the numbers this morning on the dashboard that the governor provides, and I think we have somewhere around 5,080 ventilators in the state of Ohio, and only 179 of those are being used for COVID patients.
Oh,
so that's very good.
That's
very good. Now there's another 1,200 that are being used by patients that need it for other things. But as far as COVID, we have the capacity to help people as they get this. So that's where we're at from the start. But now we've sort of changed some of our goals. I think the governor has, as far as trying to prevent people from even getting it. And I'm not a doctor. I'm a representative. I'm a manufacturer. I'm a father. But I don't know where we go from here. Can we really prevent people from getting it? My father, my father passed away a year and a half ago from the normal flu that went through the care facility he was in.
Right.
He got the flu, he got pneumonia, he passed away. I don't blame anybody for that, but flu...
That's what happened.
Yeah, that virus has been around for years, and we have, shots for it every year, and yet people still get it. And unfortunately, like my father, people still die from it.
So. Right. And I think, working in a care facility at Villa Springfield, I know we are all nervous. Right. You're always on edge.
Sure.
We test everybody all the time. We test the employees all the time. You can't follow employees home.
No.
And I myself, I get nervous. I would be devastated if I brought something back to the building.
Right.
And I think the key with the facilities is it's the elderly population. They already have things going on with them that
Sure.
they can't take care of themselves, or they wouldn't be there.
Sure.
And then we do a lot of the short-term rehab, and
So they're coming in and out.
in and out, in and out, in and out. But we treat everybody that comes in as if they have it.
Sure.
Just because we don't know any other way.
Yeah.
And so far, knock on wood, we've been blessed to have kept it out of the building. But that's not to say it could happen at any minute to anybody.
Sure. We had a patient, a worker in our business. We have 24 employees, and one of them called in one day and said, "I have a fever." And we were like, "Oh goodness, no!"
Right.
And a day later, he calls in, "I have a gallstone."
Oh,
we were
well,
never
good
so,
for
we
you.
were never so happy that somebody that had something that was
Yes.
medically a problem, and thankfully it wasn't COVID-19. So we've been very blessed. I always tell people one of the hardest times we had at our business was after 40 days of dealing with the virus. The governor passed his mask mandate, and we had to look at our employees and said, "Guess what? Tomorrow you have to start wearing masks." And they're like, "Wait a minute,
Right.
we've been working for 40 days without a mask."
That's
So
right.
It's very difficult.
It is. It's tough. And I think every day they learn something new.
Right.
Every day it changes. I think we just have to be flexible, trust the science.
Right. And at the State House, we've been working on legislation to say, listen, we need to hold businesses and healthcare facilities harmless, that they can't be liable. If you're
Right.
trying your best to keep people healthy, we can't allow a bunch of lawsuits to happen. And
That's
you see
right.
them on the commercials already. There's already people popping up saying, if you've got the virus, call us and we'll sue.
That's
you.
right. Well, we're a greedy country,
Well,
unfortunately,
yeah.
litigious.
Yeah. We always seem to blame somebody else for our mistakes. So.
We do. Well, and I think the Ohio Health Department and the governor have done a good job with facilities, with our testing. The problem is we can't get results back. By the time it's due to test again, we're just getting results back.
And obviously, just a week ago, we had an issue with the governor being tested,
That's right.
it being wrong, and then
That's
it
right.
coming out negative.
And human error is everywhere. It happens.
So, everybody says rely on science. Guess what? Science messes up sometimes.
It does. So let's talk about the schools a little bit.
Okay.
Where are we at in Ohio? I wanted to listen yesterday and didn't have time. I don't know if anything was mentioned about school yesterday or not.
Not yet, because I know people were on social media asking me why the governor didn't say something about schools. They want him to. I know he's done a lot to say in the school issue, we're going to leave it up to the local schools. And as I look at places like Springfield City, Northwestern, Tecumseh, they're all putting out their plans. Some of them are even still changing because they really don't know what the governor may choose next. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is it does need to be a local thing. I mean, Springfield City Schools is different than Tecumseh and Northwestern and Shawnee. Southeastern, if you look at their population, it's very rural, very small school. We can't have the same rules for Southeastern that we have for Springfield City.
No, you're right.
So I think the governor's right in doing that. And but at the same time, there are those that would like a hard and fast rule so that they
give me a piece of paper, I'll drop the, go down the line.
That's the way I am in life.
Yes.
Give me a list and I can follow that list. My wife says that all the time.
Very task oriented.
Right, but we do need to allow the schools to make their own choices.
I think so too, and you're right. It depends on the district, and some areas are spiking more than other areas. So you need to be able to adjust.
And the good news is the CARES Act money, the CARES Act that was passed, provided money to our schools. And as I go through, last year when the schools closed in March or April, I can't remember when they closed now.
It would seem like 5 years ago.
Yes, it does. But the governor cut $751 million from our expenditures. He basically said, I know this is what's going to happen, so he started cutting money back in April.
Okay.
But the CARES Act was passed, and that provided money to each of the schools. So actually, I think there was only 2 schools in Clark County that lost a little bit of money. The city of Springfield was going to lose, I think it was somewhere around $3.1 million, but with the CARES, no, I'm sorry, let me take that back. I think they were going to lose $1.5 million. Don't quote me on those numbers.
Right.
But the CARES Act provided $3.1 million, so they actually ended up about $2 million ahead.
With a little extra.
For the 2019-2020 school year. And now there's going to be more money for the 2021 school year.
Well, that's great. Well, that leads me to internet. If they do
Okay.
have to do remotely,
Right.
you've got the internet
Right.
issue
Right.
in the city with some kids and the rural area.
Mostly rural.
Right.
The fact of the matter is, I live in a neighborhood like that where if I move a block one direction or the other, north or west, I don't get the internet. I got to rely on my phone and
Your
one
hotspot.
bar. Yeah. But there are a number of areas. We passed, the Ohio House passed House Bill 13, which
Okay.
provides about $20 million to internet providers, not to provide free internet, but to get to those areas, because instead of having houses that are 25 feet apart,
Right.
in rural areas you have houses that are a mile apart, and providers cannot afford to run that expensive cable to get one
it
more
to every
customer.
house.
Yeah,
That's right.
So the idea of House Bill 13 is to provide incentive to these companies to provide internet for these rural areas. And it's needed. I experience it every night when I go home. But there are children that are out in these homes that are going to be doing remote learning,
Yes.
and they need to have access. So we were already working on it, and it was interesting because it was submitted in early 2019 and as House Bill 13. So it was one of the first bills introduced last year. It's become a very hot topic now.
Right, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, they need it for homework too.
Absolutely. Yes.
I mean, even the young kids, I have to Google, well, what are they talking about?
Yeah. And the schools are providing Chromebooks.
I've got to have my mask hanging there.
The schools provide the Chromebooks, which you have to understand, a Chromebook basically doesn't operate unless it's hooked to the
Unless you
internet.
have the internet.
It's not really a smart computer, it's more of a terminal to get on to the other things that are out there.
Right. So that did pass. It's going to pass.
It passed the House, it's over in
Over.
the Senate.
Okay.
And I think it should move as soon as we start having sessions again. We work throughout the summer. I always tell people,
Yeah.
they always go, well, you're not in session, you're not working. And I'm thinking, you have to understand, it's like working in an orchestra. Having session and voting on things is the thing at the end of all
That's
your orchestra
right.
practice, your symphony.
Well, yeah,
We practice
like the
and work on,
entertainment.
the entertainment part. We work on bills all the time, from the day we're sworn in to the day we end up. But those, we've been working on bills. I'm working on bills. I'm trying to get a bill on occupational licensing, which we can talk about. But those are things that are worked on, and then we go to the floor and vote on things. That's what people see, but that's not where the work happens. The work happens before that.
If it doesn't go the way you want, you go back and work on it some more.
Right.
Right.
Or we
So
get
it's
it the way the
constant.
House thinks it should be. We send it to the
Yes.
Senate, and they screw it up.
It always happens that way. So yeah, let's talk about the occupational.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a bill I'm working on. We've talked to a number of people, and in the Ohio Revised Code, there's about 800 pages that deals with occupational licensing. And occupational boards are things that we create. The Ohio General Assembly creates these
Okay.
boards. So we're the parent. We created them. Whether it's hairdressers, auctioneers, CPAs, or accountants, all those different things that people need occupational license. 20% of every job in the state of Ohio needs some sort of occupational license.
Okay.
So think of your hairdresser.
Right.
They need to be licensed. In the Ohio Revised Code, for years, there's language in each of those boards that say things like a person can only get one if they're an upstanding citizen or have good moral character, or there's a term.
That's subjective.
Yeah, moral turpitude, and it basically anybody can be declined or denied an occupational license if they have any kind of infraction in their past. Let's say if you were 21 years old and you got a DUI. Long time ago. You're now 40 years old. You're trying to do things in your life that will be better. If you've got that DUI at 21, at 40 years old, you can be denied a hairdresser's license. Just because of something.
Doesn't sound quite fair.
So what we created was a bill that said, listen, if you are 5 years removed from a conviction, jail, sentencing, parole, any of those things, you've moved on and you haven't had any interaction with the Department of Corrections or the courts, from that point on, no board in the state of Ohio, unless it is a violent or sexual nature crime, you cannot be denied an occupational license based on that. If you don't pass the board
Sure.
exam or
Right.
something like that, that's
Yes.
different. But basically, we're basically saying if you did something at 20, or 21, you can be held accountable until you're 65 years old and want to retire. We need to allow people to get the jobs that we need out there. It'll help the economy. It'll help their families.
It'll help everything.
Yes. So basically, we've said you can't do that. If in the first 5 years you have somebody apply, you have to list out what crimes that they committed that you won't allow. We're basically trying to say, listen, let people have jobs. And all these boards, if they want, can overlook any of these. We just don't want to allow them to discriminate based upon just some minor infraction.
And they see it and it's done.
Right.
No discussion.
Right. And now, of course, if you want to apply, if you get your license, you want to apply to be a hairdresser, they can still do a background check on you.
Yes.
And that's allowed, and that's part of running a private business. But we definitely want to allow individuals who have made mistakes in their lives in the past, have straightened their lives out, and want to get one of the 20% of the jobs that are available in the state of Ohio. We want them to be able to do that.
Wow, I think that's a wonderful thing.
Well, and it voted off the floor, I think 90-1. There was one individual that voted against it. We have 56 co-sponsors out of the 99 representatives, both Republicans and Democrats, that support it.
I would hope so.
It's a very good bill, and we're hoping that the Senate's going to start having hearings on it in about a week.
Yeah, that's wonderful because we all make mistakes. I mean,
Right.
we're human. That's what we're supposed to do. And we're
Absolutely.
supposed to learn from them. We're supposed to move on.
If we had to be perfect to be in office, we would have 0 representatives in the state of Ohio.
Yes. The bailout, the nuclear bailout.
Right.
Let's touch base on that just a little bit.
Okay. Well, there's a couple things that happened. Obviously, that you've seen it in the news. The Speaker of the House has been arrested and charged with bribery, and they're calling it one of the largest bribery scandals in the state of Ohio. 4 other individuals along with him were arrested as well. We'll see how that turns out. This is the first time, I know 2 years ago, if you remember, we had a speaker that was investigated by FBI. He stepped down. It was over my payday lending bill.
Yes.
And the fact that he was possibly being influenced by the payday lending lobbyists, and we fought against him, and obviously we won, and we've done some good things there. In this case, he was charged. He was arrested. What I tell people is this. I don't know what's going to happen. Let's go away from the charges. If he legally took $60 million from one company, used $60 million to get 21 people elected so that he could be Speaker of the House, and then use that influence to pass a bailout bill worth $1 billion to that company that gave him the money. And I'm not saying it is, it shouldn't be.
Right.
If that is all legal, that's not the way government should work.
So that's the way people think government does work sometimes.
Right, yes, absolutely.
And you're right. It shouldn't be that way.
So I think it's right that we removed him as Speaker.
Yes.
Because whether it's legal or not legal, again, as we just said, that's not the way government should work. In the end, a lot of people have asked me why we didn't remove him from his seat.
Yeah.
And there's an issue there because he's running in an unopposed general election in November. And there is state law that says, there's state law that says if he commits a crime, felony, he gets removed from office, period. There's nothing that we can do about it. He gets removed. Until he's convicted, if we remove him because we believe he was doing something ethically wrong, and he wins his election in November, we are not allowed, the Ohio Revised Code says we can't remove him twice for the same issue.
Okay.
So basically, if we remove him today, and he wins, and he will win in November, because he's on the ballot, and the only people that can beat him are write-in votes, and it's very hard to beat somebody whose name's on the ballot, the other people are write-ins.
Right.
He will be back in January, and there's nothing we can do. So we're sort of keeping our powder dry for that situation. And that's being used a little politically against us because it makes it look like we still want him there. Honestly, I will be glad to vote him out on January 1, but we do have to wait on that.
And that's good information. People need to know that kind of thing.
Sure.
And, what I have found is nobody pays attention until it affects them personally.
Absolutely.
So
and
it's good to get it out there.
And this is an issue where this bailout was, we redirected funds that were going to solar and wind, and we directed it towards the nuclear power plants. And I will tell you this, Michelle, I like nuclear power. We have 2 plants in Ohio. If they shut down, they will never open again. And I voted against the bailout, but I do understand that they provide, I think, somewhere around 15% of the energy in Ohio. We need that. Wind and solar only provides about 2%. So I voted against the bill because I thought it was the wrong way to do it. Do we still need to keep the nuclear power plants open? Yes. How we do that is going to be what we debate now as we move to repeal House Bill 6, which is the right thing to do, and then look at it again and say what really needs to be done to help both wind, solar, and nuclear. And,
yeah, because everything should be able to work together,
right.
I would think.
And good news is bad news, and bad news is good news. The reason the nuclear power plants are hurting is because we found so much natural gas on the east side of Ohio.
Right.
And it has gotten so cheap to generate electricity off of the natural gas that the nuclear power plants are actually hurting. The fact of the matter is we need everybody at the table.
To get together.
Yes, because in the end, we need all different sources of energy in the state of Ohio. So that's really why it was such a contentious issue, but how it was passed was definitely not how Ohioans think we should do business in Columbus.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
Well, you said something interesting. If it is proven, like you said, everything is he'll get his day in court.
Right.
The officials he got elected,
Mm-hmm.
does that affect them at all, or is it just money for their campaigns?
It was
when
just money
you
for
say,
their campaigns.
Yes.
There is, I think, one or two complaints in the FBI complaint, which is what they call the 82-page document. There is a couple issues where he probably is accused of using some money to fix his house. In the end, any of the money that would have affected those state representatives was dealt with in the primaries more than anything else. But
Okay,
in the
just so you
end,
get 'em on the
in the
ballot.
end, these are folks that are going to be on the ballot in less than 90 days. So
Right.
we'll see how that turns out. But in the end, I know a lot of these folks were trying to do what was right and trying to make the best decision possible. I will say this: I voted no on House Bill 6. I've got folks that I serve with in Columbus that voted yes on House Bill 6. They voted for the right reasons. I don't know, who voted for the wrong reasons, but I know 3 or 4 of my colleagues that I know well enough to say, you know what, they voted for just what I explained a few minutes ago. We need nuclear power in Ohio.
Yes.
They voted yes on the bill. They didn't do it because they were influenced by anyone. So
Right, and that's where it gets muddy.
Right.
Everybody wants to lump everything together.
Sure.
So we all just need to pay attention and
That's true.
deal with the facts.
That's right. That's
you
right.
know, that's kind of like on Facebook. When I see something, I think, and then I investigate a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Let's talk about the fairs.
Okay.
It's a wonky year,
Right.
but at
right.
least some were having them.
Right.
Clark County's, I watched it on Facebook. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I went out. I was out there for a few days
Yeah.
for the fair. I usually am out there for all
The whole time.
7,
Yeah.
8 days, and I never leave. My wife always wants to know where I'm at. But it was a good fair. We had a little bit of an issue because we didn't use the Champion Center, which is in the fairgrounds, but not exactly part of the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
And so to save money, we didn't rent it. So we had to have animals come 3 days in and 3 days out. There was things the governor passed. But it was a good fair. Kids got to show their animals and their project that they worked on. I mean, some of these kids, not just a year, some of them have animals that are 2 years old that they've been showing. They showed them as calves, they showed them as heifers, and now they're showing them as dairy cows. So there's all sorts of things that were going on there, but I'm glad we had it. There are some counties that didn't. The governor did come along and use some CARES Act money again and said, if you don't have a fair, we'll give you $10,000. If you do have a fair, we'll give you $50,000. What people don't realize is that just our fair, I'll speak about our county fair, for Dean Blair and the fair board to put that on, it cost $100,000.
Right.
And his
People
biggest,
don't realize that.
No. And the thing that was happening was, if he would have had a full fair, he would have had contracts with other people that were coming in that equaled maybe $500,000. And his biggest fear was, if the governor shuts us down right beforehand, instead of losing $100,000 on a fair, we're going to lose $500,000. So there's a lot of things. We have wonderful people that serve on the fair board, and they had some difficult decisions. Luckily, we got to have our fair. There's some counties that didn't. But again, the governor did his best. I feel horrible for folks that are listening. On Facebook, there was a picture of the governor and Commissioner Will.
There you go.
From a year ago, not wearing a mask, and everybody thought it was this year.
Yeah.
And so
that's what I mean. Check your facts.
Right.
Do your research.
And you can disagree with the governor, you can disagree with politicians, but it's hard when it's just misconstrued because of one photograph.
When it's blatant. Yeah. And you're right. The Fair Board and Dean Blair do a fantastic job. This year, like I said, it's wonky. Every day something was changing.
Right.
I think with what you had it worked out well. And like you said, it's about the kids in the 4-H, and they got to do what they wanted to do.
It was really interesting. I liked it. There was parts of it that I liked. I don't do the midway thing. That's not part of what I go to the fair for. So it was interesting. It felt more like an old-style county fair a little bit. And that was neat. I tell you what, I missed the pork chops, though. There was no pork chops, corn
on the cob. Those are my favorite, too. Not that I don't go out to see everything.
No.
But yeah, you're right. It was nice, but it was definitely different.
Right.
What about jobs? Jobs for our county, jobs in the area.
Yeah.
With this COVID, I saw this morning Navistar's calling people back.
Right.
So that's a great thing.
Very good. I know, if you look back to February, before this all happened, our economy was humming. I think we were below 4% unemployment.
Yes.
I know every business that, as a manufacturer that I operate with, they were looking for workers. We were looking for workers, and paying well above minimum wage. We don't pay anybody less than $15 an hour that works for us. We're still having trouble finding people who want to come and work. It's from 7 to 5:30 every day. So look at that and say, wow, things were happening. And then this happened with COVID-19. And I think I've heard more stories of businesses being destroyed, people suffering. I think of somebody that provides tents in Springfield, a good friend of mine.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that his whole business is centered around tents and mass gatherings.
Yes.
And he has been shut down. He can't sell, rent his tents. So businesses are being hurt. In the end, I'm appreciative of what the federal government did with the unemployment. We obviously had incredible problems making sure everybody got unemployment. I want people to know that we know it. The unemployment facility in Ohio went from, I think, about 100 or 90 some employees to 1,200 employees to try to deal with everybody.
All the incoming,
and we have helped people. We have problems with their login and their ID code that got messed up. They had the lieutenant governors talked about the fact that they had, I'm a software engineer by heart, they had computer programs that were run under COBOL, which is a language from the 70s. So we weren't prepared for this. We understand that. Nobody thought we would go from an economy that was humming with 4% unemployment to 20-some
devastation.
%. Yes.
Right.
So we weren't ready for that. We admit that. We've tried to help everybody we can. Our office is still working with folks. You can contact my office. I let people know if you're still having issues with unemployment, Rep 79, REP79 at ohiohouse.gov. Please contact us. Our staff is currently working from home, so our phones, everything goes to voicemail.
Right.
I would rather them contact me at Rep 79 at ohiohouse.gov
Yes.
so that we can still help you. But with all that being said, we help those who were unemployed. At this point, the President has signed an executive order to provide another $300 with an incentive for the governor to provide another $100 a week for those that are unemployed. I have to tell people, though, at this point, people are rehiring. They're having trouble getting folks come. I'm not saying that
we're having trouble.
I'm not going to say folks are lazy or that they're interested in the money, but it is very hard when somebody is receiving $600 extra a week and say, come back to work and you're going to lose that $600. That's very hard.
I agree.
I'm not going to accuse anybody of anything other than that's caused an issue with employers like me who are trying to hire people, and it's hard to get people to come back.
It's everywhere. I've spoken to physicians who couldn't get staff to come back.
Right.
One, they're kind of afraid. They're leery because the unknown, and especially in a physician's office.
Absolutely.
You don't want to take something home to your parents or your grandparents or whoever. It's just, like you said, we weren't prepared, but who could have been prepared?
No.
It's no one's fault.
Hopefully this is a once-in-a-lifetime event.
And we learn from it.
Right. My wife does counseling of geriatric patients, and she's been trying to get back into healthcare facilities. And to do that, there are so many steps you have to go through to be able to get into a healthcare facility. And then when she has to tell them that she's going to 2 different healthcare facilities, that's a no-no. So,
it is.
It's hard. But again, jobs are coming back. I know one manufacturer in Springfield here, when Honda shut down, they supply Honda directly. They decided to keep their employees on. They took the material they had for future jobs for Honda, ran those, created those parts, So they kept their folks busy for April, May, and into June.
Well, that's
and
great.
then when Honda came back in June, Honda took all those parts and said, we don't need any more for now. And now the company that tried to keep people employed during the first 3 months are laying people off. So everybody
You don't know what to do.
No, everybody's trying their best, and I think that's what people have to remember. Is
Right.
is we're all, we talked about that before. We're all imperfect. We're all trying to deal with
That's right.
something we've never dealt with before, and some of us are going to make decisions this way, and in the end, we're going to find out that some of these decisions were bad and some of them were good.
And you learn from them. I truly believe the majority of humans do not wake up every morning and think, well, how can I make someone's life miserable?
Right.
You know?
And the same is true for politicians.
Yes. Well, no, I agree.
Yeah.
What else would you like to talk about? With the state and with
Right.
everything that's going on,
Right.
and with the schools
Right.
and money
Right.
and taxes
Right.
and all that,
Right.
do you see a future of things having to go up, or do you think?
Well,
You know, I know Governor DeWine, I think at one point said that Governor Kasich had a good rainy
Right.
day fund.
Right.
I'm sure it's gone.
right. No, not
It's
yet.
not?
Not
Oh,
yet.
that's great. That's
Basically,
great.
and it's still there, and this is a rainy day.
Yes.
What the governor's looked at is, first of all, at the end, we run on a budget that ended on June 30th of 2020.
Okay.
To make the budget balance, which Ohio is required to have a balanced budget, he cut $751 million, we talked about,
Yes.
from spending. Different departments asked everybody to cut money, cut some money to the schools.
And what great foresight.
Yes,
to
yes.
do that.
He could have just said, let's use the rainy day fund, which is let's say $2.5 billion at this point. We have a $60 billion budget. $2.5 billion sounds like a lot of money. It's not that
Well,
much.
right.
But, so he literally, instead of cutting $751 million, he could have just taken $751 million out of the budget. He didn't. We're hoping that money will be there for the future. I watched some of your videos; they're great. And the mayor talked about the fact that income tax to the city of Springfield
Yes.
has dropped dramatically, and that's true. But I will tell you this: unemployment. And I've never been on unemployment, so thankfully.
Right.
But unemployment, when you get that check, it doesn't take out income tax. And I want to warn folks that are listening: if you're getting unemployment, at some point they're going to ask you to pay the income tax on that. I hope you're setting some money aside, because
I don't think people know that.
because that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons the mayor, what he said was true. He's accurate. Income taxes dropped because folks aren't paying income tax on their unemployment. So that's going to come due. Hopefully that will catch up a little bit. It's not going to catch up all the way. If you talk to the county who collects sales tax, that the city lives on income tax,
Yes.
the county lives on sales tax. Sales taxes are up because everybody got their $1,200 check and their extra
And they're
$600 a
spending
week,
it.
and they're spending it. So in some ways, things maybe, if the economy comes back quick enough, and we all have to see, maybe things will balance out a little bit, and we won't have to use as much of the rainy day fund as we had to. At this point, people are making sacrifices at the county level. The county commissioners have asked everybody to make some cuts in their budget. I'm sure the city's doing that. I know
Sure.
we've done that at the state level. I think it's a little bit of a wait and see. Just like when we came into this with the virus and not knowing what it's going to be like, we don't know what the next 6 months are going to be like. We don't know what's going to happen if, you know what, some of the hardest hit folks are the parents who have their kids in school and rely on the fact that they're in school so they can go to work. That issue, as we come to the next week when school starts up, and if they're going to stay in school or not in school, that's the biggest I don't know factor in all
It is,
this.
and it's heart-wrenching for
Right.
some families.
Right.
You know, I have nieces and nephews who are thinking about quitting their jobs so they can stay home with their
Right.
kids.
Right.
And they need, everybody works.
Right.
Used to be just one person in the household, now both.
My daughter and her husband took in 2 foster kids a year ago, and she totally planned on them being at Northwestern, and now
Yes.
we're looking at the fact that my wife and I are going to maybe homeschool them
Yeah.
while my daughter...
Well, I got a grandson. Maybe I'll send him over.
Well, people know that we homeschooled 5 kids, so
Yeah.
we've been there before. We know it's possible. There are some things that are going to happen. The time spent with parents and children together could be a very good thing at the end
It
of life.
could.
Or grandparents and grandchildren
could.
together. But that's not the way we've been operating. People are struggling, trying to figure out what am I going to do when my kids don't go to school next week or don't go to college next year.
Right.
I just talked to a young lady last night who deferred her first year at Ohio State because she didn't want to take online classes. She wants to go to Ohio State. She wants to go
Be
on
campus,
right.
feel it,
She
do
doesn't-
it.
She
Yep.
says she doesn't learn
I
well
get
like
that.
that. So
Yeah.
there are all sorts of people at all stages of life, whether you've got kids in day school or preschool,
Right.
you've got kids in school, you've got college students, you've got, we talked earlier about the fact that, or I've talked with somebody here, about the fact that my mother-in-law, who we take care of, has dementia. The Easter Seals program, the daycare
Yes.
facility that she went to on a daily basis has been closed down. And so she's at home all the time, and my wife and I have to take care of her.
And it's
so,
hard.
So everybody at all stages of life are learning new things and new ways to deal with all this.
Right, and I think in the grand scheme of things, I think, like you said, we're going to come out the other side maybe just a little bit better,
Yeah.
a little bit more patient, a little bit more everything. I've got one other thing to ask. Voting in Clark County.
Right.
For the first time I signed up, I'm going to be a poll worker, I
Good.
hope. Yeah,
Great.
my husband and I both, we figured, what can we do?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so we thought, well, that would be something, because I had heard there's going to be not enough people to
Right,
work the
right.
polls, and I want to make sure everything's open.
Well, and if you, I'm sure people who vote day of election will know when you go in, a lot of the folks there are seniors.
Yes,
they're
yes.
the most vulnerable when it comes to this
They
virus,
are.
and I don't blame them at all if they want to say, I don't want to sit in a place
Absolutely,
where
I
people are gonna
don't.
come in.
Yeah.
I always laugh because my son works at Chick-fil-A. He's a runner. So he works out in that magnificent drive-through they have where they have 2 or 3 lines. And
They have it down to a science,
right.
is what they have.
And I look at him and I know he's been doing this for a year now. All through the virus, the March, April, May, he's out there in sports shorts running back and forth between cars. And I always say, if he can do that
Right.
to serve a chicken sandwich, by gosh, we can vote
Yes,
in person.
yes.
Voting is very important, obviously. Ohio has some of the best voting options. You can vote
That we've always had.
Right. You can vote day of. You can apply for today. You can apply for an absentee ballot for no reason. You don't have to say I'm bound
Right.
at home, or I have this reason, or I'm out of town. Anybody can apply for an absentee ballot. You could do it now. It's not going to be sent to you until after October 6th. From that point on, you have up until October 31st to send in that ballot. It has to be postmarked by a certain date. And you could vote. And you can either stay at home and put it in your mailbox and put a stamp on it and they'll take it back, or you can drop it off in a box. You can also go in and vote after October 6th. You can go in and vote in person at the Board of Elections. Or you can go day of. And the governor and everybody, and Frank LaRose, our Secretary of State, has all said, we are having day of voting. Yes.
Well, there's people that want to do that. I am a day of voter.
Right.
I enjoy that. I like it. I want to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And if you aren't and you're worried,
yes.
and
that's okay.
On the Board of Election website, if you send in your ballot, well, first of all, you can request a ballot. If you request it, you can go to their site, look up your name, and it'll tell you that they got your request. It'll tell you that they sent it out. And then when you send it in, it'll show that they received it. So if you want to get your ballot October 6th, you want to send it in October 8th. By October 10th, 11th, 12th, you can actually see that they have it.
And you'll know your vote counted.
Yes, your vote counted. And so all those options are open. And I hope people use them all, because I think keeping voting down on the day of election, because people voted early, is important. Allowing people to vote by mail is important. And I know, I didn't know this as a little kid, but I don't now, living in a rural area outside of Springfield. You could put that stamp on there, put it in your mailbox. You don't have to go to the box. There's only a few places you can drop off mail
anymore.
No, yeah,
you're right.
I think Myers and maybe Walmart, and then downtown.
Yeah.
So, but you can put that in your mailbox. They will pick it up.
Mail.
Yeah, they will pick it up, and you can check on the website to see that it's there. So, if people will take a deep breath and realize
it's safe,
you need to register soon. I wrote down on my notes here. I wanted to make sure I got it right of when you have to register by. I think you have to register by October 5th. You have to be registered the day before October 6th. Register by then. You can do it online. You get on the internet. You register online. It'll show that you're registered. I've registered all my kids as they've turned 18.
Yes.
So you can register online. You can request an absentee ballot online, and you can receive it and send it back. And you never have to leave your house.
And that's great,
right,
for people who are afraid or who are homebound or whatever. But that's always been in Ohio.
Absolutely,
it's not a new.
We have a wonderful voting system in the state of Ohio.
We do.
You can check on it now online and make sure your vote was counted. So, again, take a deep breath. We can all vote starting October 6th, I think it is.
Yes.
And we can vote for like a month.
Well, it's a wonky time, but it's an exciting time.
Right.
And Representative Kyle, I so appreciate you being on. Anytime, I would love to have you back. Maybe after the election, we can talk about where we're going. You know, we hear how the fall might be kind of up in the air too, so we may need to talk about some other things with the state and the county.
We have an incredibly important election coming up.
We do.
I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat or how you feel about things.
Right.
We have to vote. I just did a survey on Facebook where I asked people all these different things, and at the end, because I wanted to know where they're at, I asked them who they're voting for. And I was shocked to see there was about 2.5% of the people that said, I'm not voting. And I'm like, no.
You have to vote.
Whether you're voting for or against, Republican, Democrat, Independent, vote, make your voice be heard. That's the most important thing.
It is.
Sitting at home and not voting is not an option anymore.
No, it's not. It's not. For whatever it is, local or federal, state, you need to vote for all of it.
Right.
Well, again, thank you.
Well,
thanks for all the work you do. You were so gracious, and you're at everything that anyone invites you to.
Well, it's been so hard lately because
It's
everything's
terrible.
been canceled.
It's terrible.
I'm tired of looking at myself on Zoom meetings and
Yes,
seeing
I
my
agree.
face. But it's so hard not seeing all the people that are involved. There's been, the Heritage Flight Parade, the Culture Fest, the
fair,
the Enid Butter Festival, a number of 5Ks that people have.
Absolutely.
It's so hard not seeing folks.
It is. And just even, we're at the Chamber today filming, and we appreciate the Greater Springfield Chamber of Commerce letting us use their conference room. No chamber events. There's nothing. It's crazy. And I'm with you. When we're used to seeing everybody, it gets a little unnerving.
Right.
You get a little antsy.
Yeah. The Zoom thing is wonderful, but it just seems like you're interrupting each other, and it's so easier to talk
to somebody. So. Yes, I agree. And if you do social distancing, or if you go out with your mask on, you're good to go.
Right.
Yeah, we can manage.
Well, I wear my bandana. People are tired of seeing me in my bandana.
Well, you're a cowboy.
We have a lot of fun.
Yes. Well, thank you again.
I appreciate it, Michelle.
Thank you for watching another episode of A Conversation with Villa Springfield. I appreciate you watching, and until next time, we'll see you later.